Reach Out Your Hand by MC Coy. Chapter 1. Dreams. Everyone had a dream or a goal they wanted to achieve. Some people wanted to go on adventures and come back heroes. Others wanted all of the spoils of life and will do whatever was needed to obtain them, and others just wanted to make an honest living by opening their own shop. Some are big, extravagant dreams that seem impossible to reach, while others seem small, or at least more doable to obtain. Denki's dream, unfortunately, falls more into the latter category. It was such a silly dream, many would even say a waste of one, but it is all he has ever wanted since he was a kid, when his mother took him into the market during the yearly spring festival. The music was a joyful, upbeat tune that carried on the wind so that everyone in the village had a pep in their steps. The closer they got to the music, the more food stalls, merchants and people started to crowd. It was the most people Denki had ever seen, and they all seemed to be focused on something happening where the band was located. His mother had a tight grip on his hand, saying she didn't want to lose him in the crowd as she desperately tried to find the stuff she needed on the list. He thought his mother's clothes stood out against everyone's vibrant blues, yellows and pinks. The castle's uniform of black and white looked dull instead of elegant like they usually do inside the palace's white walls. Though it seemed to do its purpose outside the castle still, everyone getting out of their way the moment they saw the royal brooch on the front of her dress and gave her looks of pity as she had to work on such an important holiday. His mother paid them no mind, always focusing too much on her tasks and making sure she upheld the king's standards as she went about her business. Denki, on the other hand, didn't feel such desire and was more than excited to look around at everything, going on his tiptoes to try and find where the music was coming from. He didn't have to wait long. His mother had stopped at a flower stall right on the edge of a big circle that the band was stationed in. His eyes widened as the musicians suddenly started up a new song, the townspeople cheering as men ran to grab a dance partner and women shyly held out their hand in the hopes of someone taking it. Groups of 2 were filling up the space and dancing with each other with an energy he has never seen before. It was like each couple were in their own little world and was unbothered by the dozens of people mere feet away. They would just look into each other's eyes and smile, laughing as they got the steps wrong and giggling when one of them did a fancy manoeuvre. It was captivating. It felt like he was watching something private, watching something blossom that only the 2 couples could impart as they grow closer with each step. "Mother," Denki said, not taking his eyes off the dancing people, "can I go and dance?" His mother only spared him a glance, looking over at the people for only a second before shaking her head. "I'm sorry, Denki, but I promised the king that I would be back with everything before supper, and you know I don't break my promises to the royal family. And besides," she continued, turning fully now with a beautiful bouquet in her hands, "this particular dance requires a partner." I can find one," Denki protested, quickly scanning the crowd and finding a young blonde boy seeming angry to be pulled into the circle, while the redhead with him smiled at him with slightly sharper than normal teeth. "Look, see, those boys are my age, I can ask them." "But they are already dancing together," his mother explained calmly. "Do you really want to separate them?" Denki looked back at them, now noting how the angry blonde was fighting to hide a smile as the redhead tipped over his own feet, seeming off balance for some reason. They seemed happy together, like they were meant to dance with no one else but each other. "No," he finally gave in, "I guess not." His mother frowned at him, looking him over before letting out a sigh. She plucked a bright purple flower out of the bouquet and gently placed it in his hair. "I'm sorry, Firefly, but you know the things work differently for us. Our families have served the rulers of a kingdom for generations. We give them our loyalty and labour, and in exchange they give us food, a home, and protection. Our duty is to serve, and unfortunately that means we can't just stop working and do what we want." "I know," Denki mumbled, letting his mother fix his hair so that the flower was secure in his bangs. "But that doesn't mean I can't dance another time, right?" His mother let out a hum in satisfaction before standing up, her blinding smile making his own spread across his face. "Why, of course. I'm sure people would be begging to dance with such a handsome young man." Denki let out a giggle, excitedly skipping next to his mother as he started to think about the future and who his special partner would be. His mother twirled him as they walked, making him giggle as he thought about how the movement made him feel. He didn't know it at the time, but this was the moment Denki's dream had solidified in his mind. While others dreamed of bigger, greater things, Denki's dream was to just dance with someone special. He wanted to feel his heart go pitter-patter in time with his partner's feet, to hear them giggle in glee as he twirled them like his mother did for him, and to be able to look into their eyes and just feel the connection growing with every step. Honestly, he doesn't mind if he was the one getting twirled or giggling away as they spun around the room, as long as the person dancing with him was watching him, looking at him like the couples were looking at each other in the town square, all of them silently begging the musicians to never stop playing that so that the moment could last forever. He wanted that connection. He wanted that love to be shown with each step and caress of his partner's hands. He didn't even care what dance they did together as long as it was just that, together. He hoped that he didn't have to wait long, wishing on every star in the sky that his partner would hurry up and come and sweep him off his feet in the most amazing of dances. Too bad this isn't a fairy tale, and wishing on a star did nothing but waste time. Denki let out a sigh as he stared into the night sky, the moon shining brightly through the giant glass windows that surrounded the royal ballroom. He shook his head to shake the memory and get back to work. He was on a tight deadline after all. He grabbed his mop and started to clean the marble floors, stopping to scrub on his hands and knees if he found a particularly stubborn piece of dirt. Denki couldn't say he hated his job, having tried almost all of the jobs within the castle while growing up, and found he caused the least amount of accidents or injury when he was on cleaning duty. He just got too distracted when asked to go into town or deliver messages to other members of the castle, and he was a terrible cook that ate more than he served. His mother used to fret that he would be kicked out of the castle if he didn't become proficient in something, and all but cried when she saw him successfully clean his first window without incident. A pretty low bar, Denki will admit, but with how much trouble he used to cause, it was probably well earned. He was just shy of turning 22 now, and has been cleaning floors, windows, silverware, and anything else that was thrust into his hands for years. Again, he didn't mind the work, especially when it allowed him to explore most of the castle and get into places that were usually restricted, but it definitely didn't help him reach his dream. Denki let out another sigh at the irony of it all. He was cleaning the ballroom floor to have it ready in time for a ball that was being put on for the prince in the hopes of finding him a bride. There would be drinks, music, and of course dancing, but Denki wouldn't be able to even see any of it, far too busy cleaning silverware and champagne glasses in the kitchen to sneak a peek at the dance floor, let alone dance himself. He should have seen this coming. His mother always told him that duty comes first, and that he would have to deny so many requests or temptations of fun because it would only cause issues for their family. He silently wondered what dream his mother had to give up to ensure he had a good childhood. Denki hoped that she was able to achieve whatever it was in her next life, knowing she deserved that much for how hard she worked. Though his mother died several years ago now due to an illness, he still practiced what she taught him, and always put his duties first. He didn't want to ruin all her hard work just because he decided to be selfish, or end up thrown out of the castle and onto the streets, with no way to provide for himself. So he does what he is told, completes all requests given to him, and keeps the daydreaming to a minimum. Liar, he thought to himself, and felt a chuckle threatening to slip from his lips. He will admit he daydreams a little more than probably necessary, and he takes multiple breaks while he is completing tasks to talk to his friends around the castle, but he still completes the job in the end, so no harm is done. A little fun never hurt anyone. He smiled to himself as he looked around the empty ballroom, knowing no one was awake at this time of night, and gave a little experimental twirl. Just because his dream seemed unlikely didn't mean he didn't want to be prepared just in case the day ever came. He would use nights like this to dance to a song only he could hear, sometimes using the mop as his dance partner as he swept across the room. The mop wasn't the best dance partner, especially if he was in the mood to be the one getting twirled around, but it did well enough in a pinch, allowing his imagination to fill the gaps in believing someone he cared about was excitedly moving him around the room in a proper dance. Sometimes he was able to clean the same room Jiro was practicing her violin, and have an actual song to dance to. The young musician was always around the castle due to the joyful king's love for music. He tried multiple times to ask if his friend would be willing to dance with him, but she always refused with a blush, saying she wasn't any good at it. Denki would have pressed harder, saying he was never really taught either, but he saw the way Jiro looked at the princess's lady-in-waiting and knew she would only dance if it was with Momo. So he would just smiled at her and asked for a new song instead, the girl knowing all of the songs played at the balls and parties and now allowing Denki ample opportunities to practice the moves for each one. Again, the irony doesn't escape him, having so much knowledge and experience with everything that happens at a ball and yet never having been to one. He knows deep down that he would feel out of place, only having his servant's uniform to his name and being surrounded by countless noblemen and women wearing extravagant gowns and suits. They would eat him alive if he ever stepped out of place and tried to dance with them, their noses going into the air and scoffing at him. No, his only chance of getting to dance with someone would be if he went to the village, but that wasn't really an option either. The village people only really danced when the festival came around, and Denki was always far too busy preparing for the royal party they held each year to even think about leaving the castle. So by all accounts, he knew his chances of fulfilling his dreams were low, if not at zero, but that was fine. His mother always used to say he could see a nearly empty cup of water and would still cheer and delight that someone thought about him enough to give him a share of their drink. And though he found the saying a little descriptive, he had to admit it suited him, and he vowed to live his life looking at the positive side. And the positive side to all of this was that he had access to the biggest, most beautiful ballroom in the land, and no one was there in the middle of the night to tell him he couldn't dance. So while humming the song Jiro was practicing earlier, he grabbed the mop and bowed to it as if he was asking it for a proper dance. The mop didn't bow back, but he knew it would if it could. He then positioned it in his hands, pretending there was a hand to hold in his left, while his right gripped the mop like it was a shoulder, and then he led the broom in a simple waltz. An effective way to not only clean but also dance. He smiled to himself after a few rotations, deciding he wanted to be fancier, and began to speed up, waiting for certain parts of the song to twirl the two of them, lift them up into the air, or to even give it a low dip. He giggled as he pretended to put a strand of hair behind the broom's ear, winking at it as he stood up, spinning it a few more times before he realized that he'd made the full circuit of the ballroom. He looked down at his handiwork, noting a spot he had missed, but once he did a quick sweep, the floor was spotless. Denki hummed to himself in approval, grabbing his bucket as he made his way out of the room and towards his sleeping quarters. He only had one more day until the ball, and he knew he was going to need as much sleep as he could get if he wanted to complete his chore list. Denki continued to hum to himself as he made his way down the hall, staying quiet so as to not wake anyone, but unable to help the tune or the pep in his step as the dance filled him with the rush of excitement that it always did, wondering to himself what it would feel like to actually dance with another person. He was too far into his head to notice the shadow lurking in between two pillars, having watched the servant's silly little dance and feeling a smile tug onto his face as he saw the pure joy it had brought him. His purple eyes followed his every move with interest and stayed in place until the blonde had completely left his sight. Thank you for listening till the end. I hope I see you again next time.